everybody, and welcome to Lorcanarama. And one of your hosts, Kelsey, and with me as always is Sabrina. Hey, Sabrina.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Where's that excitement that you had a few minutes ago? You're just like, hello.
It's after 8 o'clock now, so now I'm tired.
Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, tonight is a good night, special night tonight. We have a special guest with us, Anatidae, who won the Las Vegas CCQ a couple weeks ago. We wanted to have him on last week, but I already had somebody else lined up to come on. But he graciously agreed to come on, to wait a week and come on. So we're going to talk about his Ruby Amethyst deck. But before we do that, we just got a couple house cleaning things we want to do. First thing I always want to do is give a shout out to my man, Craig at Matified. No, he does not sponsor us, but man, he gave us some mats to give out at our event last week. The Gulf Coast Challenge, 4 play mats. They were one of the folks playing loved them. That was probably the hit of the day, right? Yes, we gave out a case and we gave out some other items, but it was those mats that everybody wanted. Sweet mats. And so I again thank you, Craig, for that. And as always, we like to kind of give him a plug and say, hey guys, go over to matified.com, check out the stuff that they have on there. And if you got something that you want done custom, reach out to Craig. He does more than just what's on the site. He's a wonderful guy. You've probably seen him at CCS, at some of the DLCs and other events, Pro Play Summits. But anyways, yeah, check out matified.com. So there you go. So Sabrina, this weekend, what did you learn about Lorcana?
This weekend?
Yeah. Did you learn anything new? Just, try something new, do something different.
I mean, I'm trying to learn a new deck, but that seems like an every weekend occurrence at this point.
You're off of Amber Steel? I mean, like, you're getting away from it?
I haven't played Amber Steel this set at all.
What? Wait, what was Bologna about? Oh, that wasn't this set, was it?
That was last set.
Oh, okay. Alrighty. Fair enough.
I've been on Baja this set.
Which one? Did you play Steven's deck from last week yet?
No, not yet.
Yeah,
I
you
was
should try
playing
that
the traditional version.
Man, that one that he showed last week, that's a good deck.
I've tried dogs. I can't. Something's not clicking in my brain.
Okay. Alrighty.
It's weird. I played that deck for like 3 sets. I tried to play it in this set. It doesn't work.
Okay. All right. Well, Sabrina is going to be going to Pro Play Summit Orlando in a couple weeks. So I'd like to just kind of remind everybody of this event. If it's not a CCQ, which they had a CCQ in Denver, right? But it is a big event, lots of prizing. You got folks that they're doing the bounty program there again, which is kind of cool. But Lorcana's got 3 big events that weekend. One on Friday, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. And then, of course, the bounty players, friend of the show, Dan Arnold from the Forbidden Mountain. I guess I can call him friend of the show. And then we also got Jonathan Williams, man. Hey, hats off. If you beat either one of those 2 guys, you deserve whatever prizing they're going to give, because that is going to be no small feat. 2 solid players. And then Liam, Colors Law, and JDZ Quest are going to be streaming that event. So yeah, check it out. If we're a week and a half away, you still got time to get tickets and go there. So yeah, it's good little event. And Orlando's a nice little town, a little place called Disney World down there. You might go see while you're at it. So
I'm just excited to be out of this cold, wet raininess that it is up in, the Philly suburbs lately.
Oh yeah.
Give me the 70s for a couple days. I'll be a pig in mud.
Yeah. Well, I'm tired of the 70s. I get tired of it down here. Sorry. Folks up north are like, what? Are you crazy? So
you can take this weather. It's been wet and cold and rainy all day. It's gross out. You can have it.
All right. You can keep it. That's fine. I'll take the snow, but not the wet cold. Okay.
You're not tired enough of the heat then.
No. All right. So that's it. That's kind of, I haven't done much this week. I did a lot of play testing. I'm kind of locked in. I've narrowed down to 3 decks. So since I'm going to play at Richmond, it'll be my last hurrah, probably. And so I usually will judge, but this one I'm going to play. And so, I'm going to have some fun. So, and we'll see where we get with it. It'll be neat. So tonight we're going to bring on our guest. And so I'm going to go ahead and pull it up. And Anatidae, welcome, man. For folks that are joining us, Anatidae won the Las Vegas CCQ. I think it was a week and a half ago on Sunday, somewhere around in there. I think a week and a half ago, about that far. Yeah, 7 days,
a week and a half ago. Yep.
9 days, 10 days, somewhere around in there. Depends on if you want to count the day or not. Won it with a Ruby Amethyst deck, which we'll pull up that deck list in a moment. But not today. Why don't you tell folks who you are, your history with Lorcana and in card games, and just to give us some background.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Donald. I live out in Southern California. I am kind of an old school Magic player that played casually, probably for the last 25 years. And started playing Lorcana about a year and a half ago, towards the end of the Stitch Set Championships. Tried to teach my 5-year-old daughter how to play card games. Figured a Disney Princess card game would be a nice kind of onboarding. But she kind of lost interest, and I got a new addiction.
I know that story well. I live it in my own life. So except my daughter has her interest waned and it is now back again. So it's pretty cool. Awesome. So having played the game that shall not be named, for 25 years, do you still play it? Are you, switched over to Lorcana, for the most part, or, still dabble?
Yeah, I'll play Magic casually, mostly online, and I'll draft every once in a while, do my daily quests, things of that nature.
Okay. Yep. I gave that up a long time ago. I just cannot do it again. So, all right, cool. So you're with Lorcana, like, this was a big event, right? You got a Continentals invite. That's a major thing, right? So with your history and tournaments with Lorcana, how have you done it past DLCs or bigger events and things like that? Have you almost made it, not quite made it? Like, this your first big win, or?
I would say this is my first big win. I felt that I went into like the last DLC season a little bit underprepared. I only played in 2. I went to DLC in Las Vegas as well, and the DLC in Seattle. I did pretty well in the side events on those days, enough to get the prize wall tickets and get a mat for myself. But in the main event, just kind of was pretty mediocre. Wanted to do really well in Milwaukee, felt prepared for that, and then just missed day 2 by 1 match. So I finished 5-3, and not as strong of a performance as I wanted to. But went into the CCQ in Las Vegas, and felt pretty prepared with an interesting kind of choice that I think a lot of people weren't prepared for, and so that helped out a lot.
Well, the cat's out the bag now, so I don't think you'll surprise anybody with it now. But it got a lot of folks' attention. So I'm going to pull up the deck list real quick so folks can see
absolutely.
it. It might take you a second to show up on the stream there. Okay, so first of all, what I want to know is how'd you come up with the name CocaBirds?
So the deck has always been sort of a adaptation of the traditional way of playing Ruby Amethyst. And I kind of wanted to have a deck list that was reminiscent of Harlan Sweet's KiwiBirds, in that, it's not the traditional way of playing blue steel either, but it was more of a curve deck that was tempo and aggressive. And I also, am a big fan of Diablo, so I wanted to pay my respects to the bird.
8 copies of Diablo
Long
in here.
live the bird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
8 copies of Diablo in here. So yeah. He's putting in the work. I've mentioned before the stream to you, like, most folks know I play Emerald Amethyst. I'm Emerald Steel Chronicon from the show and whatever, but that card, the 2-drop Diablo, is the nightmare for me right now in Ruby. It's yeah, it's if that Joker hits the board, I'm like, well, I might not be able to race now, and I have to deal with it. And those little piddly creatures I got, it's going to take two of them to deal with him for the most part. So he's a nightmare right now. I had to go back and revamp it. I got problem solved, but still I had to take my lumps to figure it out. So when you play this deck, as you go through it, well, you tell folks kind of like what your strategy is, for the most part, like overall big picture view. Let's not get matchup specific yet, but just we'll
Yeah,
get
of
into that
course.
in a moment. So
Yeah, so I think it's a deck that is designed to be um, aggressive to the board with a lot of what we consider just stats. So every creature has either a lot of willpower, a lot of strength, a lot of lore, and so every turn is very difficult for the opponent to deal with and is very quick to accumulate the 20 lore that you need to win the game. And so the idea is that you want to play a hard to deal with one drop on one, a Diablo on turn two, another hard to deal with two questing character on turn three, another hard to deal with two questing character on turn four, and then you finish off that sequence of the curve with something like a Headless Horseman on turn five into a Demona on turn six that gives you control of the board, refills your hand, and then essentially snowballs you to a win.
yeah, I when I first saw your list, and of course I'd run into it online a little bit, but not exact list, but just the concept, right? Like it's not like I can't remember at any time outside of when Flynn Rider Frenemy existed that we say Ruby Amethyst was just about the gas, right? Just go, just go, right?
Yeah.
And so it harkens back to that for me, but harder to deal with, honestly, because like you said, the characters are big bodied and they're questing, and so it's like you get both things with it. So that's cool. So how did you like, what was I would use the word evolution, because everybody who builds decks, everything evolves, right? Even if it's in a different color pair, you hit upon something that says, I should do this, but in this color pair, and so how did you come about building the deck or I'm not going to use the word stumble upon, but how did the deck come to you?
Stumble upon is actually not a bad word.
Okay.
The list first evolved from something that came out of the 20 Lord Discord the day after Milwaukee. I kind of come back a little disappointed with my weekend. Was going to take a little bit of a break and just kind of relax for a week. And then one of my friends on the 20 Lord Discord posted a list that had the 8 Diablos. Um, uh, he's a really strong player, Juancho Morales, and I trust him a lot with his insights. And he was like, I think Ruby Amethyst is back. Um, and so I took the list, made some changes, made some kind of uh, adaptations to what I felt was good. And after about 3 or 4 days, we kind of recognized that Ruby Amethyst wasn't this control deck that wanted to build around Maui Shark, didn't want to remove characters with Dragonfires, didn't want to try to sing Be King Undisputed, sing Second Star to the Right like it did in the Fabled metagame. It was really driven by kind of two cards, or three cards really. The two cost Diablo, because it quested for a lot very quickly. And then the Headless Horseman and Demona combination, which essentially lets you take that early advantage that you were establishing with your Diablo and then turning it into a incredible board advantage as well as regenerating the cards in your hand. And so once we kind of figured that component of it out, it was about distilling kind of what made the deck really strong and tuning it to actually be really successful in what we thought the metagame was going to look like. And so I took an early list to a release weekend triple case tournament locally and went undefeated. Finished in a split for the top four. And I intentionally hid the list because I didn't want people to know about it until Las Vegas. So we had this list very, very early and really had a head start in trying to optimize it for this tournament.
And
How
so
different was that original list from what you ended up from what is on the from I'm so sorry, words are so difficult. How different was the original like week list from what we're looking at now?
Yeah, surprisingly not that different. Again, it's a list that has popped up occasionally online in the couple of weeks since the release weekend. I think the big changes from the original list were the Peter Pan High Flyers were just Sisus, and
Okay.
the Ursula Whisper Vanessa were actually Maleficent Dragons.
Interesting. Okay. That's very interesting. And what made you swap out the Maleficent dragons? Were they just not
Uh,
hitting as effectively as you wanted?
So I think on the release weekend, especially the first couple of weeks of the meta, people were playing a lot of the spooky sites
Yeah,
because it was kind of a natural response to uh, what people assumed was going to be an aggressive kind of Amber Steel dominated early game, and so even though your early game characters would be kind of taken up by the spooky site, the ink that you'd get from it was enough to be able to play the Maleficent Dragons in the kind of mid game instead of waiting until the late game where it was more effective.
sure. That makes sense.
I found that to be true with the Emerald Steel Chromicon early on in this set. Usually, you don't really need to go beyond 5 ink, but I found myself between Webby and all the removal that inked my cards. I would find myself sitting on 7, 8, 9 ink, yet I've got a bunch of 1, 2, 3 drops. And so I changed the deck up, added in Goliath now because I could go higher, added in the 5-drop Goothy, that gives characters ward when he quests for 3 and has ward himself. And that kind of pushed it a little bit over the top. And so, maybe I've spoiled everything now, but anyways, but now I find, just as you say, so Spooky Sight kind of peaked, and now it's that like that. I get Spooky Sight so much, right? And I have all these cards in my inkwell, and now I don't see it as much. I think people have gone from running 4 copies to maybe 1 or 2, if they're running it at all. Blurple.
I've noticed the resurgence of Under the Sea.
Yeah, I hate that card.
Not that it ever totally went away, but I think there was a couple weeks there where people were like favoring Spooky Sight.
Yeah.
And I think it's definitely swinging the other way again.
Yeah, I Under the Sea is frustrating, because you don't get anything for it. When you sit across, you get to watch your characters go. At least with Spooky Sight, you go, well, I got all this ink now. What can I do? But
Yeah. And if you have a way to get card advantage, you're still in a good place.
Yeah. So, I personally I love Demona in this deck. Like, you touched on it earlier when you said that the 3 cards, were, Diablo, the Headless Horseman, and Demona, because the idea that Demona could come in, just like you said, replenish your hand and turn their stuff sideways so that you can take that horseman, which, by the way, hits for quite a bit, which he's already hit you once, by getting rid of carry, and now he's going to hit you again and take out something probably. It's very subtle. I don't think a lot of people notice it or even prep for it. They're still recovering from having lost a critter when he came down to begin with. And now he's going to come across and hit something else. It's the synergy there is incredible. So.
Yeah. There was a couple of weeks where people were very down on Demona. And I think it was because they were playing it in Amethyst Steel.
Mm-hmm.
And the effect on Amethyst Steel is not as dramatic because you're trading a lot of your characters evenly across the board.
Yeah.
But the Headless Horseman just kind of flips that on its side and says, my 01 Diablo is going to trade with your, Lexington.
Right.
And I'm going to draw a card from that.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. So that card, yeah. there's a reason why you're the reason why that card spiked in price. So I think it was what, 5, 6, it was about $8 maybe before you won, and then it shot up to 30 at one point. I think it's settled back down to 25 or so, but it's not a cheap card anymore. So
Yeah, the crazy thing is that I thought about investing in my enchanted play sets before the tournament, and I held off because I didn't want to jinx myself.
Oh man. I don't know. I'd have taken that chance, man. That's just pretty cool.
I feel like that's where you get your friend to take the chance, and you're like, listen, I'll pay you back after the event, but I can't put it into the universe. Like,
No, that's it. You invest in them and you show up playing with them. That's what you do.
Yeah.
So, but so to me, one of the interesting cards in here as well too is the resurgence of an old terror, and that's Iago. Iago goes in peaks and valleys, right? He becomes a menace. People start teching for him. He goes away. And then I don't need the tech anymore. They take the tech out. Guess who comes back? Iago. And so you caught it where he could come back again. Do you think he'll be able to stay in?
I think he has the best chance in a deck like this. I think for two reasons. One is that Iago lets you win the evasive war, which means that your Dumbos can kind of grind out longer games. And that's kind of what you want in a deck like this, is that once your gas is kind of a little bit diminished, you still have a little bit extra juice to get to the finish line. And the other reason I think is that a lot of the Iago answers, even though they're good, cheap, efficient answers, they're only an answer for the Iago. And if they don't have anything else to follow that up, so for example, the way Blurple played in the Fabled meta was you'd play an Iago on turn 3, and then the response from someone else would be a Hypnotic Strength, but nothing else. They couldn't play anything with the rest of their ink on that turn. And I think it's the same thing, is that even if you lose the Iago to something that is relatively efficient, like a Hypnotic Strength, they're still not dealing with your 1-drop, your 2-drop Diablo, or your 3-drop Sisu. And so if they take a turn off to kill your Iago, then you're still questing for another 5 on the next turn without an answer for that board. And so you're okay if your opponent just skips their turn to deal with a character that really doesn't add to the lore very much.
That's music to my ears, being a tempo player. That's one of the subtle things about tempo in this game that a lot of folks don't pick up on is like, yes, you took something off my board I just played, right? And the first thought is any tempo I just had, I just lost because I lost my 4-drop, right? But what did they put on the board for 4, right? So by stalling or by staying neutral, you actually maintain the tempo advantage, and continue to go. And that's something that that's why I like this game a lot. Is because it is more tempo driven than a lot of other card games you would play. And I like, to me, the challenge of wresting tempo from my opponent, finding that little advantage to turn into a big advantage, and in this game, it can be done in several ways. And that is one subtle way that a lot of folks don't realize is just that, is sometimes to go neutral, and so, but the Iago for the evasive wars, that's why I was asking, because the Blurple deck that just won in Singapore did it on the backs of the evasives, right? And genies again, which will seem to never go away until they do. And then the Dumbo, which
it's such a good card.
Yeah. I think that Dumbo is really, for the Blurple deck, Dumbo is the card that makes that deck go. The more I play it, it's like, I know the tendency is when you have a genie and you drop a Dumbo, I'm going to question my genie and get 2. But against certain matchups, I think it's more important that you fill your hands up with cards, especially like if you're playing against the Prince Philip combo and they're going to wipe you at some point, right? And you just can't stop it. You got to have the resources to refill the board again, right? And that's where Dumbo just comes into play. You can just draw cards until that moment happens and then just drop some more on the board. And, they can only do it 4 times. So, for the most part, unless they're bouncing Prince Philip back. But so let's. I have a couple questions for you, and I kind of alluded to them before we started tonight. So let's back up with the deck real quick, okay? So I'm playing this deck. And it's my very first match in Richmond. I decided I'm going to go for it, right? I'm on the blind. I don't know what I'm playing, and I've won the die roll. What am I looking for when I'm altering my hand in my first match playing blind?
Yeah, so on the play, the deck is really just a curve deck. So you want something to play on turn one, something to play on turn two. Ideally, you can play either another 2-drop and a 1-drop on turn three, or a 3-drop on turn three, but something like that where you have enough ink for the first couple of turns, a threat to play on each turn. It doesn't really matter 100% what that threat is, as long as it plays to the board. So if you have a 1-drop, you keep it. If you have a 1-drop and a 2-drop, you keep it. If you don't have any of that, you probably send most of it away to find it. And that's kind of why the ratios are the way they are, is to be pretty aggressive about looking for those early curve plays.
And if I'm on the draw, is it the same strategy or?
It's largely the same strategy. I think on the blind, you're going to be more selective about specifically which 1 and 2-drops you want to see. I do tend to want to see the Tinkerbell a little bit more on the draw, because it does challenge better against some of the aggressive strategies. And then you tend not to want to see like the Timothy Q Mouse, or the Peter Pan High Flyers on the draw. You'd rather have a Cheshire Cat most of the time on turn three. Again, because you kind of want to delay against most decks on the draw, and then at some point be able to flip the tempo, either with a Headless Horseman, or a Elsa, or Demona, to really kind of change the texture of the board.
I could tell you when I am on the play against this deck, right? And I hope not to get this, but a lot of times I do, and I end up with the Shift Webby line, and so when my opponent drops that Tinkerbell, that 3/1, and I've got that Shift Webby, I just close my eyes. I'm like, well, there goes that idea, because the thing that I'm wearing, I'm not going to quest with her, because I just know you got Lumiere in your hand, and that's coming down on turn two. And now that 4/1 critter is going to smack into my Webby. Even if you don't, the threat of that happening has neutralized Webby right away, and it's a nightmare. That 3/1 Tinkerbell is not to be taken lightly, knowing that Lumiere is in the deck. So specific matchups, like, when you're playing against Purple Steel, do you just try to outgas them from the get-go? Same strategy? Do you try to hold back for any board control or anything?
I think the Purple Steel matchup is more board control. They tend to have characters early on that challenge your characters pretty well, and so you can't really go too fast. Oh, sorry. And so what ends up happening is that a lot of times the board will kind of freeze across. So even though you can try to induce a challenge or an exertion, so like if you play a 1-drop Diablo into their Calhoun, they may want to try to trade the Calhoun off, but that's pretty rare. They'll usually want to keep their board relatively wide, so they have an effective Strength of the Raging Fire. And so you just have to eat the Strength of the Raging Fire, you have to eat the Thunderbolts, and still kind of stay close on the board. And then the hope is that at some point you either get a good situation where you can Demona them, or you can play a Hercules into an Elsa, and start kind of recapturing the kind of evenness of the board. And then once you Demona into that, then theoretically you should be able to trade more efficiently, so that you come up pretty far ahead after the Demona. Now that Purple Steel is playing a lot more of their own Demonas, it becomes sort of a race to who can get the best Demona the fastest, and that ends up being a little bit more variance driven. But I will say that at Vegas and the weeks beforehand, they were not playing as many. and so you were much more likely to have a good condition where Demona was better for you.
I think we're living in a world now where we can expect many more of her. I mean, Blurple's running her now, Purple Steel, this deck, green, Emerald Amethyst runs it. Like, I don't know of a Amethyst deck that doesn't run at least 2 copies of her, and it's one of the things we talk about is, you talked about getting the fastest Demona, but, actually not having the fastest Demona can sometimes be to an advantage, right? Because you can drop Demona and turn your opponent's Demona sideways and give them 3 cards and they're not going to be able to ready her, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. And I think it's a good way of countering like the other Amethyst decks with their Demonas.
Yeah.
And I think one of the big things is, again, they have to usually trade on the board evenly, whereas with you and your Lumieres and your Headless Horsemen, you can trade up, and so that's the theoretical advantage that the Ruby deck cards give you in those matchups.
Yeah. Again, that Headless Horseman, man, that fella. If I got to pull him up, hold on. Let me switch the screen real quick and go to him. I'm gonna pull him up on Dreamborn real quick. Sabrina, do you have any questions or anything? You said you had some stuff earlier you wanted to ask about the
I wanted
deck.
to hear the mulligan. That was what I was looking to hear.
Okay.
Because I think that's where I mean, like I've said, I'm trying to learn this deck, and
Yeah.
I thought that I was butchering the mulligans, but I was doing exactly what he said. So it must not be the mulligans I'm butchering. It must just be the playing.
All right. So,
Yeah, I will say the one hard thing is sometimes you have to navigate the uninkables a little bit. Sometimes when you get a lot of them, it can be a little bit cumbersome because it makes either you miss your window to Demona, or you end up with too many cards in your hand that the Demona isn't as good as it should be.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I think oftentimes you just want to play your uninkables when you can, so you can empty your hand out as effectively as possible. So if you have like
That
multiple
makes sense.
Diablos, you're often okay playing a Diablo on turn 2, playing a Diablo on turn 3, and sometimes even playing multiple Diablos on turn 4 if that's the way the hand kind of comes out.
Just get them out of your hand.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
For those who don't know what the Headless Horseman does, because we've talked about him, right?
This card's insane.
Yeah, 5 cost, uninkable, best art in the game card, uninkable Ruby card, 4/2. Leaves no traces as first ability. Whenever you play this character, banish chosen opposing character with 2 strength or less, like a mini Medusa, right? That's the way we look at it, right? Quest for 2, which is pretty powerful. But it's the second ability that really, I think a lot of people miss this ability, and they're so focused on having just lost a character to it, and the fact that it quests for 2, but they miss the second ability, Gathering Strength, which is during your turn, whenever an opposing character is banished, each of your characters gets +1 strength for the turn. And that's what was alluded to earlier when you say, yeah, my Diablo is going to smash into your Lexington and, take it out. It's like, oh, how does that happen? That's how it happens. So,
yeah. And I think something that people miss sometimes is that they're looking so much for the first ability's banish effect that sometimes you could just play the horseman just to have it in play, so that you can set up for a good board trade later on, or a Demona trade
right.
on a subsequent turn. So I think the second ability is so
Definitely.
important.
Yeah, it's a very good
You
point.
don't need the EV for it to be worth playing.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. So yeah, because I'm that person. I'm like, well, I don't have anything to get with it. I just as well play it, I guess. But you actually do have purpose in playing it, even if it doesn't hit that first ability. So, so any matchups in particular that give you a little more grief than others with the deck?
I think the Sapphire control decks tend to be a little bit harder. I think the purple steel decks, you have to be very careful in those matchups. It's I think a very skill intensive kind of color pairing. But I would say that there's not a lot of good answers to the Prince Philip combo in this deck, and so you either have to be cautious and know how to navigate around it, or just go so fast that by the time it comes down, you're so far ahead that it's
It doesn't matter.
essentially doesn't matter.
So is that why the library is there?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought. Now, I with this deck, Ruby Amethyst, my initial look at the list, I'm not going to claim I was close to your list, right? I had some of the concepts down, but I went to Olaf first for my one drop. Did you consider playing Olaf in here at all? Or did he, if you did, why didn't he make the cut or?
Yeah, we tested Olaf a little bit, kind of in some early iterations. Again, I think we got a lot of inspiration from the Amethyst Steel decks. You can see that the Timothy Q Mouse and the Fast Flyers are really kind of adaptation from Frank Carson's list
Mm-hmm.
from his CCQ and Utrecht. But the Olaf, unfortunately, I think compared to the other one drops, just didn't quite trade the way you wanted it to. It didn't contest Calhoun very well. It didn't contest opposing Diablos very well. And then the ability to return something tended not to matter quite as much as it does in like Amethyst Steel, where you can return Hades, you can return Doc, and you want to have the capacity to get value off of a boosted Cheshire Cat, for example. You just didn't have time to replay those things, and so you just wanted to go fast.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
I noticed
go ahead, Sabrina.
one thing that you said when you kind of gave the overview of the deck was not in your words, but basically that each card had to be statistically impactful. And I think that seems like where Olaf is. He doesn't fit that. He's not his stat line nor his lore is statistically impactful. His ability is, but as you said, it has to be in the right deck, and there's not necessarily enough ETBs to re-trigger in this for that to be worth it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's the same with the Mulan, the 1/2 that comes on with damage. It has some nice little tricks with the Cheshire Cat, where if you play it and you can move damage on the same turn, it can catch people off guard. But the body by itself on turn one just doesn't quite do as much as you need it to, and so the Tinkerbell just I think outperforms it in probably like 85% of the situations.
I agree.
Yeah.
I go back to what I said earlier. That card dropped on turn one, and the threat of Lumiere coming down, like, shuts down my Webby. So, and the Mulan would not. So, I would actually dare you, Mulan, to come in and come on in. But I have a question too about another card in the deck, and that's the David Sanatos. I pulled that up on the screen for folks to look at. So, tell us about the inclusion of this card. Was it as impactful as you wanted it to be? You only have the one copy in. Did you find that it was useful enough to keep in? Do you need more copies? Take it out. How did this card perform for you?
Yeah, it's a card that I've had in the list for a while now. I think one of my testing partners always says it'd be a perfect 1.5 card. It's not something you want to see all the time, but when it does matter, it's impactful enough that it wins games by itself. I think the nice thing is that similar to the way the library operates, but gives you a little bit of aberration to kind of the standard way the game plays out, is that it quests for 2, it's hard to challenge into, and then it allows you to rush in things that your opponent might not expect. So sometimes you'll have your opponent exerting an invasive that they think is safe, and then all of a sudden you drop in a Yago, rush it in with a Xanatos, and it's gone. And then sometimes it's just the ability to get cards back from your kind of lingering Diablos and lingering Tinkerbells gives you enough fuel to find your 2 questers to actually get to the finish line as well. So I think it's a nice way of pushing the game forward while still not falling too far behind if you have to trade.
I like the idea of having this guy in Diablo in play, your one drop, and that Joker can just run into something and draw you 2 cards. So, if you're in a pinch, yep.
It's crazy how much card draw there really is in this deck, I feel like. I know that's like an old staple of red purple, and without friends on the other side, we've kind of gotten away from that being quite as powerful, but there really is a lot of opportunity for card draw in this deck, even taking out the Dumbo, in my opinion. There's still a good amount of opportunity. Obviously, the Dumbo makes it, significantly more likely. But without the Dumbo,
Yeah,
there's still
Yeah.
a fair amount.
yeah, yeah. The double puts it over the top, but I
Yes.
agree. I think the Demona is a lot of card draw. The library, the genie is obviously going to keep the deck moving.
Okay. So going forward with the deck, are there any cards in here that you would take out? Maybe they didn't, even after testing and you went to Vegas, you found out, this card not really as good as I thought it was, or it didn't really do much for us. Just not looking forward to the meta, but let's look back to the meta you played in, right? Were there any card choices that you wish were different in the deck?
I was actually pretty happy with the list for the days of the tournament.
Okay.
Reality was that through two events that weekend, both the Friday 1K event and the main CCQ event, I actually never lost a single match. And so, with that said, I can't be disappointed with how the list performed, through that weekend. Um, Now, moving forward, kind of looking forward, I think there are some things where you can make adjustments to be better into kind of the mirror match, into Amethyst Steel, into the way that the Blurple decks are adapting to the deck. I think you have to be a little bit more evasive. You have to be um, have answers to Iago, and so I think those adjustments are kind of ratio adjustments. So like the Timothy Q mouse can be like a Vanellope. The 3/1 evasive. The library can probably shift a little bit so that you have like either another hypnotic strength or another they never came back for more illusion answers, things like that.
Oh my gosh, that's why that card is so good.
It's
Sorry.
that
You just broke my brain because I've been inking that card like every game. And I'm like, I mean, I
no,
guess this might
no.
be okay. I just realized why that card is so
That
important.
card is a
Yeah, it,
pure
it can kill it
tempo
can kill
card.
two illusions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh my god.
Not only does
See?
it pop illusions though, but you think about it too. You can exert gargoyles, and when their opponent has more than 3 cards in their hand, and it also it's a tempo card. This is a tempo deck, right? And this is another way for you to just eke that tempo advantage a little bit further in your favor. By telling your opponent, hey, those answers you thought you had next turn, they're not going to ready up in order to answer my character. So, so it's,
yeah,
or they're
or
trying to
yeah,
keep
or
up
when
with
they,
you.
they think of yeah,
Yeah.
or they think of they have a lead in the race,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden they don't.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. That was truthfully the only reason I saw them for. I told you I was either mulliganing fundamentally wrong or playing fundamentally wrong. We found the problem. This has been very educational.
Sabrina's going to go and win Orlando now with this. So she's going to go back
Yeah,
and study
hopefully.
her own podcast, which would be great. So,
I'm gonna play it in my sleep.
yeah.
I feel like I need to absorb the information.
Yeah. It's, I honestly so when the game first came out, I loved Ruby Amethyst because, it was, it was not my favorite color combination to play, but it was the perfect balance for strength and having fun for me. And mainly because it was kind of a control type deck at the very beginning. It moved into more of a mid-range control, and then it went to end game, and then it fell off, and then it came back, and now this has echoes of what Purple Steel is supposed to be doing, or at least its claim to fame. I think you have usurped it now, and so you said that some of the Sapphire decks gave you grief. Were your I would say were your hardest matchups, and is there like any particular thing about those matchups really that is it because they're able to get to their end game and play the bigger creatures like they typically do, or what is it about those decks that you find are a little bit tougher matchup?
Yeah, that's typically kind of the big component of it is that they can get to their top end and stymie your ability to gain lore pretty quickly. Like Sapphire Steel, for example, if they can draw an early Goliath and then turn that early Goliath into multiple removal plus body effects. That's just hard to contest sometimes. And then same with the Sapphire Emerald decks where they'll just drop an early Clarabelle, draw a bunch of cards, and then play a Prince Philip combo and lock you out of the game before you can even finish it. And so there's not really any answer to that in these color combinations,
Hmm.
or at least a good answer that doesn't make you worse kind of in your core game plan. And so
Demona.
sometimes you just have to accept that. Yeah.
Yeah, I have found that Demona is the answer to the Philip combo. Is if you can get her down before they get to turn 6 and pop that Philip off the board, then they can't shift in. That's it. That's as close as you got to an answer right there with it. So that's a nightmare combo. But yeah. Unless you're playing like Emerald Steel Chromicon, then it's just the malicious, mean, and scary that gives you grief because it takes out half your
Yeah.
board by itself. so, so
All your
yeah,
little tiny creatures or
yeah,
characters.
yeah. So there've been a couple deck lists that I've seen in Amethyst recently that haven't really played Elsa's, and you don't hear much about Elsa. Like maybe we take her for granted. Does she still bring the value like she usually does in your deck?
I think she does. I think it's just a card that, gives you the ability to remove something off the board that you need to get off the board. The rush is helpful, and then the fact that she's evasive, gives you a lot more fuel for your Dumbo.
Hmm.
So I think that's kind of another component of it. I think
I feel
she's
like
kind of, yeah. Go ahead.
no, you're good.
Oh, I was saying, I think she's still, a really solid card. It's not my preferred turn 5 play. You really want to get the Horseman in play if you can.
Yeah.
But I think she still fills a lot of roles.
I think Elsa's always going to have value in that you can use it to take out a card that your opponent thinks is safe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
that's scary. Like, you know, obviously we're not running strengths or anything like that in this deck, but the Elsa can essentially do the same thing in that that card that you think is safe isn't safe now. You don't have to have exerted it for me to be able to take it out. And that's huge in some games.
So
Yeah, and she gets a lot of value too because Lumiere makes her a little bit bigger.
yeah.
And if you have
Yeah.
her on in play after either a Hercules or a Horseman, she gets a lot of value there too.
So one notable card that's missing is the Hades looking for a deal.
Mhm.
And so I'm not knocking you having not included it in here, but I just wanted to hear from you. Like what were your reasonings after? I'm pretty sure you tested it, but what were your reasons for not playing with the Hades looking for a deal?
Yeah, I think that the Hades is a card that I think a lot of people kind of defaulted to, just being one of the stronger purple legendaries from the new set. I think when you think about it from a play pattern standpoint, the Hades just did less than you wanted it to in most situations, and didn't line up with your core game plan as well as it should. And so I think as people started testing it more, it fell out of favor. And so I think the reason why it still exists in a lot of other lists is that the anchoring list that came out early on had anywhere from 3 to 4 Hades, and it felt like a natural inclusion. But when you think about when you play it on turn 5 and you play it, you're rarely getting the value you want out of it because they're going to have you draw cards, and when you draw cards, you actually reduce the effectiveness of your Demona on turn 6. And so it's not a great turn 5 play. The other issue is that it's a medium-sized body. It's a 3/4 that on turn 5 is not that impressive, and it only quests for 1 lore. So that if you're trying to play it and push the tempo advantage that you have, it actually sets you back a little bit. And then after turn 5, when you're playing on turn 7, turn 8, turn 9, um, the cards that you get from it may not matter all that much when you want to remove something on the board. and so you're never really getting the effect that you want when you want it.
Those are all good reasons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I remember when the cards were first spoiled, and like there was Hades and Demona, and everybody's like, look at this amazing 5-drop and 6-drop follow up. But the point that you just made, well, if you end up having to draw those cards, your Demona kind of loses something, because now you may not be as free to swing with her on the follow up turn because you might not be able to ready her because of all these cards you got from Hades or whatever, that you're still trying to deal with. So, yeah. And
Overall, I find Hades to not be the big bad I was afraid it was going to be. There's like very few games I've played that Hades comes out that I'm like, oh crap. Like that totally disrupts my plans. Personally. I don't I just
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be a lot scarier than I think it is in this current meta.
yeah, I find
I
it.
think it's a good card, but
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, but it's just not. It just doesn't.
It-
It's just like playing a Finders Keeper on turn 5. It just doesn't do a whole lot to change the way the board is kind of playing out.
So
Yeah,
the
yeah,
reason
I
I
agree.
asked the question with you is like your deck has a very, it's not a control deck really, right? And Hades is more in line with that control mentality. I'll take the removal or I'll take the cards. Either way, it's a win-win for me. But in the case of your deck, what you really want is that you want that ongoing presence on the board that's continuing to advance board state. Like you're not you do have some aspects of control, right? But like that's not what you're driven by. You're not driven by a control factor in this deck. You're just driven by I gotta go. I gotta keep the tempo. I can't lose it. And Hades can gain you tempo if it takes out a character. But even then, you leave that up to your opponent to decide that, and a smart opponent will realize, no, I don't. I'm not going to give you that tempo with it. So,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah. One other card before we close out the deck, and I'm going to switch over to the browser again, is Hercules. Did my heart good to see him in here because I like this card. This card, I love the idea. I always like when they design a card that goes along with the character in the movie, right? You just feel like that's what Hercules is, right? But for those who don't know what Hercules is, he's a 4-cost unequal ruby card, 5 strength, 3 willpower. It says this character can't be dealt damage unless he's challenged. And then a second ability, while this character is exerted, your other hero characters can't be dealt damage unless they're being challenged. So the first thought that came to my mind was, oh man, if this is on the board, when Demona comes down, it's like a one-sided board wipe almost, because you just run your characters into their stuff and none of them are going to take damage. And so, did he do what you wanted him to do? Did you have the opportunities to use this card as much as you hoped for in the tournament?
Yeah, it comes up
I've also
occasionally.
set light bulbs off.
Yeah, it comes up occasionally. It's really good into Amethyst Steel. It's probably your best 4-drop in that matchup because when it's upright and ready, it actually still can't take damage from non-character sources, and so they can't Strength of the Raging Fire it, they can't Thunderbolt it, and so it'll guarantee to stay and stick. And then the follow-up is usually going to be an Elsa, which is also a hero, and so you're going to get some value from trading into their biggest character on turn 5. And if they for some reason had exchanged their Calhouns and their hooks off the board early on, and there's nothing else to challenge the Hercules back, then your turn 6 is Demona, and then you can take off the next thing that comes on the board.
Hey,
So it does come up. I will say that I think if you look at some of the other lists, especially like the second place list and some other players who are playing 2 and 3 of them, the real challenge is that it's not as good on the draw. It's not as good into other non-steel matchups. And on turn 4, when it's not as good and you can't ink it, it makes your Demona worse. And so uh, I was happy with 1. I think 1 is probably how I would play it moving forward. I've seen people cut it completely, and I think that's a fine way of moving forward with the deck too.
I like the inclusion. I think it, especially when you have you're in a tournament with an open deck list. they have to know it's in there now. They most players who they'll look at a deck list and go, well, I got to prepare for Hercules. I got to be careful about that. I can tell you that as somebody who plays Lewis a lot, to bail myself out and deal with nasty characters, this card drives me nuts because Lewis is so ineffective against him, and it just, yeah. It's like I if I top deck a Lewis while this is on the board, I just like, okay, let's go to the next game. So it's just, there's no bail out there. So, well, any parting shots with the deck? Anything that you want to talk about it with that we haven't had a chance to cover yet, or?
Not a whole lot. I think that the deck list, well, even though it's not going to catch people off guard anymore, I think for anyone that's interested in playing it, just take your time, play a lot of games with it. It's a lot of fun to play. I think that's kind of the reason why I got attached to it early on in this set. It's got a lot of diversity in terms of how it gets to the end game once you start getting more invested into various lines. And there's a lot of little tricks and there's a lot of little kind of nuanced interactions that I think really showcase showcase skill as you start getting comfortable with the deck.
And do you have like, if folks want to get in touch with you, you have like a Discord handle or Twitch, or if you do, and I'm asking you this and I'm saying it for the benefit of folks, I'll get it from you, and when I'll post this video to YouTube probably tomorrow, and in the description I can put your contact information in there for folks, so they can reach out to you. Do you have a Metafy or anything like that? Have you thought about doing player guides yet? You want a tournament now, you qualify.
I don't have the motivation
that's
to
fair.
do a Metafy. One of my friends has written a Metafy on the deck. He's a close friend of Tiago's, and worked with him on a similar list.
Okay.
Kind of around the same time that we've been building ours. So if you want to look up Raymond, he has a Metafy guide for a lot of beginners in terms of how to play the game, and how to play the deck, how to alter for certain matchups, how to approach certain matchups. I think it's very good as a introduction into the deck. And then as far as getting in touch with me, I'm usually available on Discord. I'm pretty active on the 20 Lord Discord. You're always welcome to DM me. My handle is Anatidae. And always, always happy to, give advice and talk about things.
Yep. And I pulled up the screen again so everybody can see your name under your face now. So Anatidae. Okay. All right, Anatidae, we got one thing, and I warned you about this before we close for tonight. You get to play a good game with us. Okay. Are you ready? So
ready.
All right. So I'm going to give it a chance, since you're watching it on a different screen here, for it to pull up. I'm going to swap to a card. Give me a second and let you see it. Let me know when you can see the card.
Okay.
All right. You got it. All right. So here we go. This is Donald Duck Daisy's Date. He is a 3-cost inkable ruby card, 2 strength, 4 willpower. He has an ability, and can you tell me what that ability is and how much he quests for?
Oh man,
Tough one, huh?
I think he quests for 1, and I think he gets like 2 strength if there's a Daisy in play.
Okay, Sabrina, you want to take a stab?
Do I ever know what these cards do?
I give you a shot because one of these days you're gonna be like, well, no, I know what this does. Well, I guess that's not today, but
today is not that day.
So, okay, here we go. Plucky play. Whenever this character challenges another character, each opponent loses 1 lore. So what gets me about some of these cards is like, there's another red Donald that probably does exactly what you said he does, but it's like, we don't play with them much, right? So we're like, which Donald is this? That's the thing about this game. We have so many of the same character, but different iterations of them. It's hard to keep them separate sometimes. So, yeah. Okay.
The Amber Daisy that quests for 2, the 1/4, the 1-drop. She's Daisy Duck Donald's date, isn't she?
Yes.
I kind of thought maybe they did something that thematically made sense, but they do not.
They don't. Yeah, I missed opportunity. They should have had some type of synergy with them. I don't know. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
what I
why
thought
I
it
was
was.
like,
Yeah. Like, would it be
I think
great?
your answer was better.
Would it be great if he were a 2-drop that said Daisy's date? When you play him, look at target opponent's hand and, you know, remove a character card or something, because they just
Yeah.
got it from Daisy. So, you know, it would be great. The card could stink. It could be an 0-2 or an 0-1. That way it just did what it's going to do and you get no further benefit from it. Yeah. But
At least it would be thematic.
yeah, right. All right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. You're always welcome back, you know, especially if you win another one, right? So, but Sabrina will come and let us know how she does with the deck. So you watch, see how she does.
Don't put that kind of pressure on me.
You got a tournament coming up. You're playing the deck. You know, you're either gonna come back grumpy, or you're gonna come back excited because you found a deck that you really like, and you know, hopefully it's this one. You know, so yeah.
I really like playing it. I just don't know if it's the deck that I'll take to a tournament.
Well,
you know,
now that
I've figured out
go ahead.
in this that I've been playing it crucially wrong with 2 cards.
That's
so,
my point.
You know,
now that you know how to play it, go try it again. It might take on a new life with you. You know.
oh, I'm gonna. Don't worry.
So, all right, Anatidae, thank you again for coming on. I appreciate
Thank you.
appreciate you. You know, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, even though we couldn't have you the week after, you were gracious enough to come on, you know, a couple weeks after. Always welcome back. Come and talk. You know, if you feel like you want to come back on, just reach out. We like having folks on. So, you know, and for those who are in chat, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it as always. If you haven't clicked that button to follow us, you know, go ahead and follow us. You know, we just appreciate it. So we will see you all next week. And so happy questing.